Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back in with a video. This is going to be like a bit of a testimonial. Just kind of been reflecting, on my life, and I think a lot of us starting to see that we're not going to live, until our 80s and 90s and all that, break the 100 barrier or anything like that. So I'm turning 40 soon, and so it's not much longer than that. So I've just been reflecting on my journey, to get me here to this place. And this was inspired by a comment somebody left on my comment board. I believe it was Jason Wallace. He's like, do you believe that this life is a test? And, I answered that question a little bit differently, where I believe this is ultimately at the highest level for us to see evil in order for us to be like God. And so God wants us to be like him because that's the only way that we can be in his presence. And so we have to understand good and evil and what he likes and doesn't like, what he loves and what he hates. And then he can co-work with us. And that's what this is at the highest level. But from an earthly perspective, it is a test, and then ultimately we are going to be presented with every other God but the real God, who now I believe more and more every single day is the God of the Bible, the God of the Israelites, the Most High, as he's described, the Creator, the Alpha and the Omega. And so, this has just got me to think about how I have been, worshiping other gods throughout my life. And then now I'm settled on this one. And it's the God that I present in my channel. It's not just, oh, I'm a believer. We can't say that anymore, because we have to take a position on lots of different topics that are very, very important and have potentially eternal consequences. So it's not just I'm a Bible believer, and that kind of thing. We can't say that. And I've said that throughout my life. I know exactly who I worship now. And I present that God on my channel. And anybody who doesn't accept that God, I hate and I reject vehemently. And so it's an all or nothing for me in this video is to explain how I got here and how I explored other gods and how they failed. And so just looking back, like late in high school, I started developing my first romantic interest in this girl. And the thing that I found the most appealing about her was like, she was very happy, like she was just always in a good mood, it seemed like. And then really like being around other people, and like it didn't matter who they were, and like whether they were like super popular or not. So she was one of those girls who like was really like adaptable and versatile and like friendly to all people, genuinely. And so I was like, man, that's very, very unique. And obviously I was attracted to her, like the way she looked and stuff. And so it was like, I literally like was obsessed about her. It's funny to look back. I mean, it's scary that I cared this much about any one thing except God. But yeah, I mean, I was like literally obsessed, for like years. And then like I would do all the things that, any creepy person would do. Is like go and like try and be where she is and like, like that kind of thing. And like just literally like stare, and stuff. And like it was very, very intense, like, and I think in that case, actually, a lot of the things that I thought about her were actually true, because we had like mutual friends and stuff. So like I didn't know, it's not like I didn't know anything about her. I was just making up stuff. Like she was actually, and we later, did start dating. She came to the same undergrad school as I went to. And so she started following me. No, I'm just kidding. But, I was, in part of the reason why she decided to do that. And so, she was actually the way that I thought, like genuinely. And so that was slightly reassuring. But, a lot of times when people do that, they're just making up characteristics of the person that are not actually real. And so I was like literally like obsessed. Like I would come home, from lunch and like I couldn't even think, I was just listening to music. My sister probably like, what's wrong with this guy and stuff like that. And so, I was a year older than her. So, she wasn't like in my classes and stuff like that. But like, I was like, it was just really like obsessive. I don't know how to put it another way. And so it also shows that, my personality is a bit like that. I would say a lot like that. And that's why whatever I pursue it very, very intensely. And so that can be used in a good way if you're on the right path, and it could be very, very dangerous if you're on the wrong path. And a lot of people will go down the women lane, or drugs, or even school, can be a drug for me as well, that I'll talk about. money and all that, all those things, things can be alternatives or done simultaneously. So it's it's dangerous. But in the one aspect that it is righteous is that when I am onto something, I pursue it intensely. That's why I scare people sometimes with the way that I speak about my channel, but it's not meant to. It's just that I just plow over anything that gets in my way of whatever it is that I'm pursuing. And so that's been the case from the beginning. That's very clear. That's a part of my personality. And I suspect it's part of a lot of people's personalities who are drawn to truth because we don't care. We're required to have that in our DNA, in our quote unquote DNA, spiritual DNA, because the truth requires it to plow over everything that's in our way, or else we won't reach it. And that kind of thing, like we'll just slow down or just, whatever. It's too far away or whatever, that kind of thing, metaphorically. So it's necessary, but, it can also be very, very dangerous. And so to fast forward a little bit, like we're dating in undergrad and all that, and like, so far so good. But obviously it's very dangerous because I'm much more interested than, not like she wasn't interested, because she obviously came to my undergrad school, which is a big thing because she could have went anywhere. But like I was obviously more interested, like from the years of just like being obsessed. She wasn't like that, she wasn't like going home thinking about me or anything all day. So I was clearly wanting to be in that relationship much more. And then that's not a healthy position, and so that's what I think is incredible too from a spiritual perspective, is that as much as we want to be in the presence of God, we'd have to believe that he wants that just as much as we do. And I would assume a lot more. And so that's very amazing to think of, like we just assume that God is, he's just sitting on his throne, he's like, whatever, like, I don't care if they come or not. And like, I'll just create something else and entertain me. We know that that's not the way it is, because our earthly parents are not like that. And, the prodigal son is a great example of that, where God was overjoyed, when his son returned, even after he's squandered his savings and all the money, that that the king worked for. He was like, happy, incredibly happy, and like he met him out, kind of thing. And then that's what salvation is, kind of meeting us, quote unquote, halfway, more than halfway. So just know that. But anyway, back to the story with this girl, right? So I find out that, like, she tells me that, I think it was like the summer prior or something. We were not dating at this point. She was like got involved with another guy, and like that was devastating to me, because again, I was the guy who was like totally obsessed about her, and like we were dating, and she had no, reason to to honor me or anything. Like, it's not like she was being unfaithful. Like, we were not even friends, I would even say, at that point. So it was just devastating, and I think, like, for me, it's just amazing for me to even tell this story, because like I literally don't even relate to that person at all, but thankfully. But that was a huge disappointment. I was like, my quote God at that time, which was her and school, probably, not probably, it was, one failed, big time. And I was like, wow, I essentially treated it like we were married and she stepped out. Like, it was that bad and more and stuff. So, that God failed me, and then from that point onwards, it was a very, very downward spiral, because all those great qualities that I thought she had, and she really did have, of course, like, that's not a big deal, it's what young kids do. I'm not saying it, it's right or biblical or whatever, but like, I mean, it's not, with the way the world is, what she did was like totally not a big deal. And, that kind of thing. So I blew it way out of proportion. And so I was clearly in the wrong, and to even care about that kind of thing. So, that quote unquote God failed me because, I ascribed all these characteristics to her, and then I just used that one against her. And then, like, it was just like a downward spiral at that point. It's not funny. That, needless to say, that ended, and that was my first actual relationship. And, it was, gone very, very quickly. And so, my God was gone now, one of them. And so what I did was, then I just gave the other God more and more attention, which was school. And I literally didn't stop, for like, that was my first year of undergrad, and then the next rest of it. And then, second year of undergrad, she was in first year. And so I just like went in full school mode, which I always was, but I had even more time now because I was single. So, I just went, bonkers, on school, and like just studied a lot. And I don't really remember taking more than maybe 10 days off in school in undergrad. And that's not to boast, but I just want people to know that's how obsessive my personality is. Like, and maybe even less than 10, where I literally did not do any schoolwork of my entire 4 years in undergrad. So I went to like a nightclub like 3 times, and 2 times were on campus. So like I just didn't go and have fun, and like obviously too much of that is unhealthy, but it's not good. Like undergrad's not supposed to be like that. The way I did it, it was like a job time, 2 jobs basically. So anyway, so now I'm worshiping my replacement God. So school, okay, so I think people know where I'm going with this as a flat earther. Okay, so spent all this time in school, and then I graduated top of my class in electrical engineering at University of Western Ontario, and then so I had good choices of where I wanted to go for grad school. So being the arrogant person that I was more back then, I applied to all the best schools. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Harvard. So I applied to like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all these top schools, UPenn, McGill, Case Western, Rice, all these good schools, 10 schools or so. And so I got into 4 of them. And then, I was like, let me feed this God kind of thing. And then, so I get accepted to Rice, and I visit Rice, and, this is what brought me here to Houston, where I live now. And, I was like a small school, very, very nice people, very, very nice people. When I came here, they were very friendly, and their grad students were incredible. Their teachers are amazing. And when I go to the school, that's the way they are. I genuinely hold Rice University in high regard, because they were not like misleading when I visited. Just like the girl that I was interested in, she was not misleading at all. She was exactly who I thought she was. Same with Rice. It's like they are exactly the way they presented themselves when I visited the campus. And, it's amazing, and so, but I go there and then I obviously thinking very highly of myself. I find out very, very quickly, how smart the people are in the world, and not just at the undergrad school that I went to, which is like a decent school, but not the top school even in Canada. So I find out very, very quickly, that I'm not the smartest person in the world. And the best student in our grad program was an undergrad student who's now a professor at Caltech. And that was humbling very, very quickly. And the second best student is now, I believe he's full professor at Georgia Tech. And so I was like, okay. And so these people think in mathematics. They don't think like the way normal people think. They literally think about everything and how it can be pinned down with mathematics, with rigor, as I used in my last video, and completeness. And they're obsessed about it. And so I wasn't, certainly at that time, and not now, to the level that they are. And so my undergrad school was good, but it's more of a school for like going into the industry, and like working at an electrical engineering job or something like that, and to focus on power systems, my school, but not like telecommunications, and mathematics and statistics, which Rice is very, very well known for. Also chemistry, Rice is well known for. They've had Nobel Prize winners there. But anyway, I found out very, very quickly that, that God is getting taken off the shelf too. So now I'm running out of gods, okay? Because I'm like, okay, the girl thing, that didn't work. And that failed miserably. And because of me, of course. And then I go chasing after this God, and then this God rejects me this time. And so, and I was like, oh shoot, okay, so now I'm running out of God. So, that's amazing, okay, but thankfully my experience at Rice, because of the credit to the faculty and the administration there, obviously they're all liars because they're teaching the ball earth, but at that time, when the way they treated me with what I knew, it was a great community, for sure. And, they were like, we'll work with you, like we don't want you to like, just get sad or whatever. Like they actually like genuinely care, they just like, get your master's degree. We have a program where you can like slowly kind of, quietly just get the degree, and then, pursue other interests. And then if you ever get reinvigorated, you can always consider it again. And so I was like over the moon happy kind of thing. So I did that. And then, I go to the corporate world thinking, okay, well, at least this God can prepare me for the corporate world. Okay, this is great. So I start my job at Schlumberger, 2007. And so, I just, I have the world in front of me, I'm like excited because like, I get my first car, and then like I got my own place. And, at Rice, I was getting paid in the, around $20,000 a year, which is like, not a lot to live off of for a grad student, it's okay. But, relative to the cost of living and all that, I didn't have a car and stuff. I just walked to campus because I live right beside the campus. So I was living like that, And I don't really have like an opulent lifestyle, but like I didn't really get to like do fun things or do anything, have a car. And then so, I get my first car, I have a real paycheck and all that. So I'm like, wow, this is great. And then, the corporate world hits me. And then so first project I get assigned to is a software that I don't believe actually works. I'm like, this is like basically like voodoo. And there's no way that this thing is actually robust enough to do what we were programming it to do, is to provide real-time updates for like underground drilling, and then to give them a picture of what they're doing, but like update it daily. And so it was a rapid imaging, software. And I just knew by what I was understood, about the physics. I'm like, there's no way that this is accurate. Like I wouldn't feel more comfortable as a driller having this image to guide me. And so I was working on a project that I didn't believe in. And then the company, the internal segment that was paying us, I was in research and engineering, to make this and develop it further, were struggling because they were just having issues out in the field. They called the division seismic guided drilling. And, then obviously somebody has to take the blame. And then so it was only me and my boss, 2 engineers working on this. And I was the lead engineer. And so, I was kind of like getting, I wouldn't even say, I was kind of getting a bit of the brunt of it. The technology was already established by somebody else, so it's not like it was, I came up with it or whatever, but I was essentially trying to fix ultimately something that like I already knew was not robust and like mathematically sound. And so I was like in a bad position. Okay. So I'm like, oh shoot, this corporate thing is not starting off really well. And then, so, what do I do kind of thing. And so, my career at Schlumberger, I was still managing to get good reviews and all that. And like, people like me, but obviously if your project is not flourishing, it's hard to get the highest ranking. I always got the one below the highest, which is plenty to like keep you, head above water. But I was like, oh man, it was just in my mind. Like, obviously I wasn't piecing this all together, but I was like, oh my gosh, like corporate world's failing me now, and then I managed to actually get interested in accounting, just kind of like out of my own interest, just learning about accounting. And then I actually started taking accounting courses, and then not even necessarily thinking I was going to transition out, but it did happen that way. And so during grad school, when I was going through those tough times, I started tutoring, like a young kid who lived in the Rice area. And then me and his family started developing a relationship because like I was tutoring their son for over a year. And then the next year that I tutored, now that I was making money, I didn't charge them because I was like, well, I don't need the money now. So they were like, oh, like, why are you doing this kind of thing? And so we developed, like, I would say, a friendship. I'd even like bring them like Indian food sometimes and stuff because they said that they like it. Not sure if they ate it, but like I would bring them some. And then so, I had this relationship with this family. And then I find out later, I didn't actually ask details about how they made money. I mean, they had a huge house, but I find out that they own a plastics company. And then, I look for this job posting in accounting, just kind of seeing what's out there. And then I see their name come up. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I know them. And I was like, I didn't know that they own this. And then so I just literally wrote like friend of the family on the application. And then I didn't even finish my accounting credits. And then they took me in as their accountant, entry-level accountant. And I was getting paid as much as I was making as an engineer. So I had to like pretty much take it because that's never going to happen again. And so I was like, oh, okay, now my fortune's going to change. I was like, well, this has to be it kind of thing. I go there. Okay. They brought me in because they're about to fire their controller who they don't like. And it's not that he's like necessarily bad or incapable or anything like that. They just don't like him, and then for whatever reason, which actually I know the reason now, but like in corporate world, they create churn. And so they'll hire you, give you a hard time and then get you to leave. And then they'll hire somebody else and then set you up and then go. And then that's what they do for job security, just so people know. And that's what the CFO was doing. He's passed away now, but so I can speak ill of him as much as I can speak ill of him as much as I want, but that's what he was doing. It's not necessarily his fault per se, because that's what's happening everywhere that I know now. But anyway, that was him hiring that person and then churning him and then spitting him out. He wasn't as threatened by me, which is why the couple hired me, because I'm young. Like I'm not going to try and take his job or anything, because like he's like about to retire. And then so like he's not going to care if this young kid comes through and whatever. Like it would take me 10 or 15 years minimum to get to the CFO's level. So that's why they brought me in as like a young person. But I didn't know at that time that they were getting me to learn what the controller was doing because they were going to dump it on me. And so that's what happened, and then I was like, oh shoot, like I just finished like half of my accounting courses and now I'm essentially doing the work of a controller, a financial controller for a small company, granted, but like I was like, damn, like I was like drowning, in accounting, and like I'm pretty good at like just being resourceful and figuring things out. So I was effectively the controller, for this company for a little while until they hired somebody new. And then I trained that person. And so that job actually got boring because like I pretty much knew like how to be the controller, like within like a year or two. And so I was like literally in the deep end. That job, my first accounting job, was the most important one for me in accounting because I learned a lot, about how to do the month end and all that. So anyway, this is like, now I'm like in this role, okay? And then now this like new accounting thing is failing me because I'm like, this is boring now. And then I'm in all these political things, because like everybody's trying to keep their job security and all that. And so I haven't quite pieced it all together at this point, but like, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, essentially what I'm trying to say is like all these gods are failing me. The women thing, the school thing, the corporate thing, and then multiple times in the corporate world, just to kind of fast forward this story. And then, I joined another company. From there, I rejoined Schlumberger, the first company that I worked for in San Antonio, in accounting this time. And that was a disaster. My boss and his boss, were against each other. And my boss's boss was the one that hired me to kind of basically spy on his report. So it was like a sandwich. Me and my boss, his boss were together, and then my boss and then his boss's boss were Middle Eastern, and they were on the same team. And so it was like Middle East, it was like the Middle East against Canada, because me and my boss's boss were from Canada. And so it was like Canada against the Middle East kind of thing. And so it was like very, very political. Like it was just awkward. It was like cringe awkward. And so that didn't last longer than a year. And so then I joined Amazon. And so I was like, oh, Amazon's going to be great. Look at all their leadership principles, yada, yada, yada. And it was like the worst of all of them because they have these leadership principles, but they don't follow any of them. They don't care about their employees at all. And like, it was like the summary of all those bad things in one place kind of thing. That's the best way to describe it. It's like everything bad and all those other experiences I found in one place. And then that didn't last long, about a year or so. And then I moved to Bed Bath & Beyond. And it was the same, exactly the same. It was worse because they were laying off a bunch of people. And again, they brought me in just to kind of keep the thing going for a little while they were getting rid of their finance department, their IT finance, for a new fresh faces. And so I was brought in a very tumultuous situation. And so that didn't last long. And then the most recent company I worked for wasn't that political, but it was just boring. Like I would just go there and like have nothing to do. I would sometimes go to the driving range in the afternoon because there was nothing to do. And so like no one brought anything for me to do, and I wasn't going to go and ask. And so it was just like death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. So anyway, so that's my sort of corporate, story. And then during that time, near the end of it, Flat Earth comes along. Okay. And then, so, I was like, wow, maybe I was wrong, about this. And so you get all this excitement, like, wow, okay, maybe it's the Flat Earth. And then, you have like a community potentially, and like, you have a new God, potentially like a God, okay, something to pursue. And, and then I think everybody knows who comes by my channel that the Flat Earth community are essentially Satanists. And so I find that out, down the road. And then during that time, I come across, the Hebrew Israelites. And I'm like, wow, okay, wow, this is pretty cool. Christ's dark skin, and then they sound like they know a lot, and they do know quite a bit. And then now I find out that a majority of them are Satanists, okay, the leadership. And so it's just been one disappointment after the other is the point of this entire video. And now I'm here, and so to answer Jason Wallace's question, is this a test? Yeah, to me it has been. And I failed every single test, okay? And it's like, And I've prided myself throughout my life that I've never failed, like tests and stuff, but I failed all these tests. But this is the amazing thing about my journey. If what I teach ends up happening, is that it's for a reason. And so, one major thing I forgot to mention throughout that time is during my time at Rice and at my undergrad school, I got involved with Campus Crusade for Christ, and in undergrad, and then in grad school, I got involved with InterVarsity Fellowship. So I was like into Christianity. Okay, and that girl that I was interested in high school, she was like, a Christian, and so she was the one who like bought me my first Bible and stuff like that. So I was like, man, she's like holy as well and stuff. So I was like, she's winning on a lot of things, and so that was an important part of the story too. Is that like Christianity has failed me, and then over the years, and I was married to a girl for a while who was working for Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, and like. I was like, wow, okay, like, this great minister and like spiritual people and all that. And then now we see that entire ministry is a fraud. Ravi is essentially a sexual predator. And it's been, admitted, by his own family, his own daughters and stuff. So his wife obviously won't admit it because she's a Satanist like he is. But like, she's not going to just honor and, those people who've been, harmed by his evil deeds. Because a lot of these Christians are Satanists. Like they're the most evil because they're not honest people. Okay, you don't get a sense of like being trustworthy around them, and so Christianity has failed me many, many times over. That's just one example. All of us, and then the flat Earth proves that. But so that's failed. Okay, and then the flat Earth, and then that's failed, and then the Hebrews that they failed. Okay, and so now I'm here, and then I've gone through all these, jumped over all these hurdles. And gone through all these hoops and all that kind of stuff. And then here's TMoG. Okay, here's Chirag now. I'm a product of my experiences, just like we all are. And so has it been a test? Yeah, and I failed all those tests. Okay, I've looked for every other God that I think is even possible. There was even a time during my early truth time where I was considering joining the Nation of Islam because I wasn't like serious about it. But I saw Louis Farrakhan through this is the early days when I was watching like InfoWars and all that. And then he was speaking out against, the evil structures. And then I was like, this is the only guy that seems to actually be saying something, with like conviction and like pointing out the evil. And so that was the early days when I didn't realize the evil is everywhere and that he's part of the evil. And so, which I obviously know now, but I literally like, looked under every stone, nook and cranny for a God. I was like, ultimately what we're all doing is the point of this video is we're all searching for a God. In a woman, in school, in the corporate world, in religious structures, in truth movements, in sports, in anything. Okay, we all are, whether we know it or not. And then some people just land on the wrong one. And then if I would have landed and stayed on any of those, it would have been the wrong one. I know that now. And then now, later stages, there's people that come by my channel, and this is laughable at this point. Because I believe that I was sealed and that people still come by advertising their God. And I reject every single other God out there except the one that I present on my channel and every aspect of it. I'm not compromising a single thing. So if you want to relax one of them, then you're a Satanist to me and you're my enemy. And so whatever you get, I'm going to get the opposite. Whatever I get, you'll get the opposite. And so I'm not relaxing a single thing. And so it's because of all these other gods that I've tried and have failed and let me down. And so when people come by and say, oh, TMoG, aren't you worried about, like your thing not happening by the end of the year? No, I'm used to failure, like from all these things. I've already gotten accustomed to exploring a God and then having it let me down. And so my mind, it's all been a preparation for it. I'm not expecting it to happen because obviously I hope that Christ returns while I'm still here in the body, but I'm used to it. And so if you're honest with yourself, and a lot of people that come on my channel are not honest, you're used to it too, okay? And so that's why I don't take anybody else seriously, because I've been around dishonest people, and I've been one of them myself. And it's very, very rare and hard to find an honest person on YouTube and in real life who are genuinely honest and will tell you the honest truth and stuff. And so that's why there's antichrists everywhere, false Christs and false prophets everywhere. And so it's not that they're going to come to you and say, hey, I'm a Christ, will you worship me? what Christ is saying by that is like all these other people and structures and things and groups are false Christs and false prophets. They're going to tell you that they're your, that they're your savior, and then they're going to prophesy a good life for you, but that's not the truth. Okay? They cannot come through on what they're prophesying. So, if my God, who sealed me on January 1st, 2020, does not come through on what he's promised that he will return when I'm in the body, then that's another God that has failed me. The nice thing for me is that there's no other gods that I want to explore. There's no other religions. There's no stone that I haven't looked under or whatever. And so it's my God or nothing at this point. And that's why I will cross over with a smile on my face. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because again, I'm used to the disappointment, but it's not a problem, And so, and then I will not worry that, I wish I had tried something else, because I've tried it all. Okay. And we all have to different degrees and all that. And so that's the point, from an earthly perspective. And so from the highest level, we had to see evil, and I was a part of it. And so for people to understand the narrative at the highest level is that God can only have people around him that are like him. He can't have lawbreakers around him. I'm going to give you an instruction, but I know you're going to go and break one of my laws. And then like, God can't have that. Okay. That doesn't happen even in our court system. How can you have a court system that sends people to jail, but like the jail cells are all open and you can just do whatever you want and all that? No, that's ridiculous. So how would that be with God, who's infinitely more requires righteousness, for the people that to implement his directive. So if the evil court systems require that demand, that of course God's going to. So just know that. So that's the way it is, and so that's what's happening at the highest level. But from an earthly perspective, we were essentially presented with all these false Christs, and then they're going to bring false prophecies into your life. And so I've seen that, in my life. I've worshiped false Christ, and then what they promised me has not come through. And so this is where I am, and so this is the last hurrah, so to speak, and I could not be any more excited. First of all, exploring all those other gods makes me tired just thinking about it. But I share this, just it's an interesting way to kind of, summarize, what I've been through and all that, and to reflect and all that. I don't do that enough, actually. But, for other people to relate to that, that's the point. If you've wondered why did all these God bring you all these other gods and then they failed you, it's because now we can choose the right one. And I would highly recommend people consider the God that I'm presenting on my channel, because he's the only one. There is no other. It's not the God of the Hebrews. It's not the God of the 501c3 church. It's not the Islam or Buddhism or anything like that, or Helmet, or all these people, D-flat, all these people that come by my channel just make up stuff, okay? It's either my God or none. For me, and I've looked everywhere else, and there's no other one, okay? I didn't make this stuff up on my channel, okay? I didn't just come up with it or whatever. And so the God that I present is the only God that's out there. And I would highly recommend everybody consider it, And that's why I'm not worried about any time limit or that kind of thing. Because, again, I'm used to the disappointment. But at the same time, I would have to believe that all of that was to come here and land on the right one, And then all of that was a training to not trust women to be your, quote, savior, to not trust education, the system, which is what we know that it is now, the corporate system. So women, of course, because the elect are men. The education system, I don't trust it because I only want information from God now. So that's okay. I learned that the hard way. Corporate system, which is like majority rules, don't go with the majority. Okay, I've learned that. Don't go with people who present themselves as righteous, like in the 501c3 church. Don't go with them. Go with God. And then the Hebrews, just because they know certain things about the Bible, or can even say that they're Israelites, and they may actually be Israelite, don't trust them either. And so that's brought me here. And so this is where I stand, and I stand comfortably that it's either my God or none. And so that's the way it is. And all of these things have brought me here to this point. And so we'll see what happens. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.